that much tonight.
Do what, Patrick?
Is it short for, hey, where'd you lose those at?
I am
that's the name.
particularly offended by other people's bad habits that are not the same as my own at the present time. The way they always do those things, this and that and other stuff that I don't have the time, money, or energy to do anymore. But if you've got some things to say about stuff I do every day, that is not the same as yourself at the present time. Who, tell me who, that's WHO, died and made you king.
Be me. Be yesterday. Bought new cereal. Fast forward to today. Have first bowl of cereal for breakfast. Go to university. Come back home. Cereal box is full of ants. Cereal doesn't even have sugar or anything. Pour another bowl. It's fucking full of ants. Pour milk and eat the ants in a fit of anger. Fuck you, ants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like genocide.
Yeah.
Terrible. Yeah, I've been getting those like really tiny black ants in here, like the really small ones.
Things. I'm so glad we don't have ants anymore.
But they're so small, they don't bother me as much, you know? It's
You're okay with them just crawling all over you at night?
as long as I don't leave
just crawling you
anything
when you're
sitting,
sleeping.
like any kind of food plate items sitting around, then it doesn't happen. But
Take
guys,
those
I'm really
paper plates and throw them in the yard.
yeah, they're the scouts. And then I seal them in a bag and I just throw it away. That's my method.
Wow.
I'm really excited. I've got, this is a new bottle of scotch. Lafroig. It is Lafroy. It is Lafroy. Triple wood. I'm gonna get triple wood drinking this. This is the most.
What it does?
Yeah, this is the most expensive whiskey I've ever bought. Right here. I figured eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we may die. You know, the Apostle Paul actually said that. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah.
That sounds
Was that the one that
familiar?
Was that an
Was that the one that used to be Saul, then he became Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
should
the
be.
one.
Artist formerly known as Saul.
So that's
Yeah.
a $87 bottle of whiskey. That in the
How's
whiskey
that
world,
smell?
that's not expensive, but to me, it's pretty expensive.
Man, you're fucking balling. You're buying
Smells like-
$87 of whiskey. You're buying Lunar Star Story complete.
Yeah, I got that too. I bought another really expensive PS1 game.
Do you have a dead uncle die or something? Is that how you're getting all this money?
Yes, I inherited
Tens
all
of
that.
dollars.
And he's weekend at Bernie's using him so he can still get the Social Security. Keep those games and whiskey a coming.
Gotta go,
Oh man,
gotta go visit the doctor once a week.
Get
or
on the
something.
dance floor, Grandpa.
Yeah.
I'm getting a lot of smoke. I'm getting a lot of smoke and salt water. I'm not getting so much
salt
peat.
water.
Yeah, I'm getting a salty on the back end. I'm getting some saltiness.
I like that.
And it's good.
If it was safe
I
to
live
drink
in Florida.
seawater, I would.
Smoke and salt water.
I was hoping it'd be a bit more peat. It is peaty. It should be peaty, but it'll come to me.
You said Pete, right? Not
Pete.
P.
Peat.
Okay,
Fuck
that's
is Pete.
all right.
Peat
in
is
whiskey.
like peat bog. It's like
Peat moss.
moss.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Peat
yeah.
moss.
They make scotch with peat moss.
Peat moss.
That's what gives it the swampy flavor.
Peat moss.
Patrick, you got any whiskey?
No, I'm doing White Claw right now. Don't
Oh, White
Don't
Claw.
judge.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what you were gonna say?
What?
White Claw, ruby, grapefruit,
Oh,
right there. Yeah.
I got these new. It's like the new Blue Moon low carb thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's called. I can't remember what it's called, but
Blue Moon
it's
Light.
like they tried to cover up the light beer flavor by adding too much orange flavor, and it just kind of tastes like
Does it taste like medicine-y?
I should have
No, I
called
mean-
it New Moon.
it's it's a bit too much like a flavored beer. You know, the flavor is overbearing.
It's like a beeringe.
Yeah,
Orange.
it's too much. It's okay, but you know, it's fine. But anyway, Patrick, anything else about your state of being?
My state of being, like,
Your state.
yeah. So fucking Knox County is bringing back the mask policy again.
Bring it back.
where-
They haven't had this. They haven't had
Yeah.
a mandatory
Oh, I thought
Public.
they did.
No.
Okay. Well, now it's mandatory now in Knox County, as of Friday at 12 a.m. in the morning.
Like anywhere you go?
No.
Any public places you go,
Like
Anywhere
grocery
Any-
stores?
except, yeah. And they
City
said you-
places. Knox County owned buildings, I thought.
No, like what I read said if you go out in Knox County, it's going to be that. If you go in and eat anywhere, you don't have to wear the mask while you're eating and drinking. So those are still safe.
So
Let's
it's
play
still
that video
possible.
again.
Yeah. So it's,
Yes.
it's still possible to eat and drink. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Because that's what I was worried about. I was like, because me and Nathan had planned on going out to Paul's Oasis Friday. And then that pops up. Oh, mask
But if
policy.
you stand up, from the table, you're supposed to have a mask.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
When you're seated at the table, you don't have to have a mask.
Any
If you're
listeners
up
want to
and
meet
moving
us
around.
there, you're welcome to. Friday
Yes.
Night Oasis,
Bill.
Knox. Meet us to hang out.
Chill, bro.
Yeah. And then
Feel
cops can
free to-
write a citation too.
To
What's happening?
I wonder if they
Approach me.
would. I wonder how many cops would.
I don't think they would. I don't think it's worth their time.
out
But they were saying like it'll end up being like either 30 days in jail.
What?
No
What,
way.
they're gonna throw you in
Mask.
jail for not having a mask?
Yes, 30 days, or they can write you a citation, or they may be okay with doing a $50 fine, but it'll be a misdemeanor charge still.
Take me to jail.
Oh,
I don't want to go in your COVID jail.
I'll talk about it later, but I'm refusing. I'm refusing to wear a mask. But I'll talk about that later.
Yeah. Yeah. Man. Like I think it's debatable on whether or not people should wear masks, but going to jail over it.
I don't
That's
think they're
like
gonna do that.
authoritarian, right? Isn't that what that is?
It's all mandated by the health department. I
Yeah.
don't see how they can establish cops writing like giving you citations or taking you to jail for it. It's not a law.
Because everybody just goes along with it and says,
I know,
okay.
it's stupid. And what was the other thing? There was something else. Hang on, let's see if I can find it.
All right. Well, you keep looking for that. Dave.
Yeah.
Yo, what's up? I'm here.
You're looking good. We can see
Hey.
your whole face and stuff. This is
Look
really
at
you.
strange. We're used to
feel
either
like
seeing
you're
the
bright.
top half of head or bottom half of head.
Well, I knew what Nathan was talking about last week, so that's why I kind of figured out by looking at the little boxes on the main screen, not my box.
Yeah.
So I figured it out.
That's good.
I understand. How you doing?
How you doing, Nathan? Wait, we already
You're
know how
asking
he's
Nathan?
doing. You're not supposed to
Talked
ask
about
him.
my whiskey. I talked about my whiskey. $80 porter. Anything else to say, Dave? You got your like wireless things in your ears.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You got
these are
that
new.
connected to your what? To your iPad? Is that what you're doing right now?
No, to the laptop.
To a laptop. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dave's got his listeners may not be aware, but Dave's been really struggling with his setup as of late.
Struggling.
It's
He's been
working.
improving it.
Yeah, well, it's working great. But there were a couple weeks there with some frustrations.
I was just really angry. It's not going well for me, and it's still not in the. But that's another story for another day. But at least this works. This is important.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Okay. Brad.
Yeah.
If I've ever heard you pull the ripcord so fast. I'm doing better. I don't think I talked about this at all last week, but my car fucking died last week, and I don't recall bringing it up on the podcast. It fucking died in let's just say over an hour away. And I didn't have AAA at the time, but I fucking do now. So
Right.
I had to pay first kick in the balls, besides not being able to get started and trying to fucking troubleshoot it in a parking lot, was having to pay $270 to get it towed back to where I live. So that was the first kick in the balls. Anyway, figured out it was the timing belt, but replaced the fuel pump, replaced the fuel filter, replaced the timing belt, replaced the water pump, replaced the thermostat.
Jesus.
What the fuck else did I
Straight
replace?
up
I replaced the
overhaul.
brakes. Yeah.
Might as well.
flushed
Is
the
this your
coolant.
saying you just bought a new car? Is that...
Well,
Yeah.
the good
Piece by
news is
piece.
it runs like a new car now. So that's
Replaced
really fucking nice.
one of your lug bolts.
Oh yeah, I had to replace two of the
Two.
wheel studs.
Yeah, wheel studs. Yeah.
Yeah. Broke one off, stripped the other one, kind of really fucked up. That's a fun way to get those back on.
You know, Becca sent me a Snapchat of you working on your car,
Oh yeah.
and it was not a flattering picture of you. As a matter of
Oh.
fact, I think I texted her back. I said, "Whoa, I hear banjos."
That's why you have
I'm sure it
overalls
wasn't-
on? What?
I'm sure it wasn't a flattering
What's
picture.
wrong with banjos?
I don't know. I was in a nice part of Vero Beach, thank you. When it broke down.
Have your rebel flag shirt on? What's the deal?
No, I was driving to another job for work, and I'm just it's driving fine all day, and then I get to an intersection, and I have my music going. Then I look down and see, oh shit, my car's not running, and my battery light's on, my check engine light's on, oil pressure light's on. Like, oh god damn, what happened? So I look around. I'm in the middle lane. Look in my mirrors on my right side. Nobody's in the right turn lane. So I'm like, well, guess I better get out and start pushing now before this light turns green. And people are like, what the fuck? Why isn't the guy moving? Because that's always the reaction.
Yeah.
And I
Right.
got out and started pushing. Then luckily the guy behind me saw me, and he hopped out and was like, hey, you need a hand? I'm like, hell yeah.
That's nice of him.
Pushed into a parking lot, and I thought it was just the battery going bad because I had messed with the alternator tension earlier in the day. Because I saw the belt was flopping around. I was like, well, I'll just tighten that up, because I had replaced it last week and not really paid attention to it.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, fucking
Well, you kind of got lucky with your timing
Oh,
belt.
yeah.
If something goes wrong with your timing belt, it's like it's a crapshoot whether or not it fucked up the engine.
Well, the good
entirely.
news
Better off
is
to have a time and chain.
the good news is my Toyota is a non-interference engine, so when the timing belt snapped, there wasn't any real damage to the actual motor itself.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, when we were going to get to the timing belt, I took off the lower timing belt cover and heard some ball bearings fall, and I'm like, oh shit, that seems like a good sign that it's something wrong with the timing belt. And then get it off and look at the water pump, and the water pump wheel is just fucking rickety and rattly, like you can just shake it. Ain't supposed to be that way.
You're supposed to do that.
I didn't know you knew cars, Brad.
Well, I thought I knew cars, and then I had to do I say that, and then I'm fucking still till sundown trying to figure out what the hell's wrong with my car. And now I'm like, oh yeah, I know my car. But yeah, it is quite the
good.
trial by fire when you have to replace your timing belt, because it still took 8 hours, and I made the mistake of drinking an IPA or two when we first started on a stomach, so I was already.
That's the
pretty
only way to
buzzed.
work, though.
Like a mechanic should.
Yep.
It was it was a lot more fun doing it with the buzz.
It's more fun, and it takes a lot longer.
Right.
It's crazy, like how hard it is to think and troubleshoot. You know, when you got a little bit of a buzz going. You know, if everything is
wasn't
going
that hard.
exactly as you
saw the
think, you
video on
know,
YouTube.
it's like you know exactly what the problem is and everything. It's not a big deal. But if like you run into issues and you have to try to figure stuff out, it gets real difficult.
Oh yeah, no, it was just beating my dick into a door trying to figure out what was wrong with it until
Right.
we just narrowed it down to the timing belt.
Yeah.
But
Luckily,
now
old
that-
Kegel, he's a whiz as well.
Kegel's the man. Kegel's
Okay, cool.
Kegel, yeah, he helped me out a lot. So shout out to Kegel.
Way to go,
Maybe.
Kegel.
Shout out to Kegel.
Yeah.
Steve-O.
Well, I had a good week. Had a launch yesterday. You may notice your GPS get a little bit better. Not really. You probably won't notice. But
Elon said that, right?
he said that it would. Yeah, he said your GPS just got a little bit better. Yeah, they
Why would
launched
it get better?
They just launched another GPS 3 satellite. They're in the process of replacing the old GPS system. So it was only the third one. So I can't remember exactly how many there are total, but there's lots. So over time, GPS will get better. But I just looked at the chat, and Joe Call is in there, and he said that he's just here to tell Steve-O it's a Bradford pear and not the dogwood that smells like cum.
Oh,
The Bradford
Joe.
pear. So
good to know
yeah.
that. Good to know that Joe's up on his cum-smelling trees.
let's see,
We've got a
You walked
true.
into that, Joe.
Bradford
We have
pear
a
tree.
true connoisseur. Thank you.
Here, let's. Oh yes. Okay, yeah. This is the I would have been able to point it out by looking at it. I thought that whenever I looked at this tree, it was the dogwood. I just
So
don't
we've
know
been
about trees.
disparaging the Tennessee state tree all this time.
Yeah,
The whole time, man.
that's unfair.
Oh, I had one of those trees across from my old job.
Yeah.
They're pretty
Yeah.
for a couple weeks out of the year. They're like all white and stuff. There
So
used to be
it
one
just-
right outside the pizza
just-
shop.
So it would just smell like semen if the wind blew right.
Oh yeah.
Is that what happens?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or springtime when I guess it's their pollen that smells like that.
It just permeates
Yeah.
the air.
Yeah.
It's the seminal. Yeah.
I mean, it really is. It's the tree semen. I mean, make no mistake about it. That is
No mistake.
that is tree semen that is going into your nostrils.
It is. Yeah, you know what it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Guys, I had a really fucking weird experience a few nights ago.
Okay.
I got home from work and I had this leftover brisket. And yeah,
I was just gonna say, I said a brisket. She said a brisket, a Trisket.
All right.
I'm sure if Becca was here, she would really appreciate that.
Maybe I don't know. It's too old a movie.
I know. Anyway, so I get home. It's this is late. It's like 1 or whatever, 1:30. I reheat this brisket, and usually what I do, like I didn't put anything else with it. It was just some butter and some like garlic powder and pepper and stuff. And I eat this brisket fine. It's good. And I'm only telling you this now because I'm trying to figure out why this happened to me. But so I'm trying to go to sleep. It's like 6 in the morning. And I can't get to sleep. So it stretches out to 7 in the morning. And I'm starting, my stomach's like, it's not like I feel sick. I start to feel hungry a little bit. But I also feel like, I don't know if you've ever, because brisket, it was very fatty brisket, and I'm doing low carb. It was very fatty, and then I added butter to it as well. So it was a very high fat meal. And so you can kind of feel like when you've eaten something that fatty. And I was still kind of had that feeling. Plus, I was feeling hungry. But anyway, I was starting to kind of drift off to sleep. Not really asleep, just kind of getting there. I'm like in this in-between state. And I have to lay on my right side because my left shoulder's fucked up. So I'm laying on my right side, and I usually have my hand like kind of like this or something. And all of a sudden, I had this feeling like my head was about this size.
Whoa.
Let's say 3 feet. Let's say 3 feet of my body was a head.
So
And then-
like Goldeneye back in the day, we got
Big head mode.
DK
Yeah.
mode. Yeah.
Yeah. I had this feeling that my head was enormous. It took up most of my body, and then the rest of my body had like shrunk.
Wow.
And I was just laying there, and I'm like, when I'm feeling my head, it feels like I'm doing this, like I'm rubbing my hand across a fucking beach ball.
Yeah.
It was really bizarre, and I was just laying there.
Shrooms.
It's like it was like I was tripping. It was like I
It
was.
sounds
tripping.
like a fever dream.
But I wasn't. I was not asleep. I was definitely not asleep. But it did kind of have. I've had fever dreams.
Yeah,
like that.
like right before you fall asleep, those weird like dreams.
But I just, it's kind of started to freak me out a little bit, but I just kind of just sort of went with it. And but I knew if I'd have gotten, but I was trying to get to sleep. I knew if I'd gotten up, it would have gone away.
Yeah.
Whatever this feeling was, because it's a perception. Because I remember this book I read years ago by this evolutionary biologist, Dan Dennett. He had this book called The Mind's Eye, and it had all these like mind experiments you could do. Because most of the time, most people like where they sense themselves to be is like right behind their eyes, right?
Right.
Like your sense of self generally is here. Some people say their sense of it's like in their chest.
They're weird.
I think
it is
in the
weird.
Back of my head.
That is pretty weird, but you know, he would have these kind of meditative experiments you could go into where you could imagine your sense of self in, say, a different part of your body or even outside of your body, and you can do these things, and it was kind of like that.
Yeah.
But I started to wonder, is this a thing that happens to people? Like, is anybody else report this? So Steve-O, if you could pull up this one story, what it's like to have Alice in Wonderland syndrome.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that one.
Oh.
So here's this story. My name is Ellen, and I have Alice in Wonderland syndrome. No, that doesn't mean I'm trapped in an insane world of Mad Hatters and grinning cats, or that I'm friends with a white rabbit. It just means that now and again, parts of my body grow either very large or very small. I'm a giant who's too big for my bed, or a tiny person whose clothes are hanging off. At least it feels that way. If you recorded me during an Alice in Wonderland period, you wouldn't see me magically growing or shrinking. I am not a mutant. I am not blessed with magical powers. I just have a weird brain-related condition that no one quite knows the cause of. Alice in Wonderland syndrome, also known as Todd syndrome, is a strange condition affecting the brain and the senses. Todd, T-O-double-D syndrome.
T-O-double.
It mostly affects children, but some people like me have the condition in adulthood and has been connected to migraines, which I suffer from, epilepsy, and glandular fever. Did I get glandular fever from this brisket?
Did your gland feel hot?
I don't know. No, I mean,
which gland?
Did you just get the meat sweats, man? It was just intense.
Meat sweats. The episodes rarely last longer than an hour, so the condition has been difficult to research. As a result, many doctors won't even know about Alice in Wonderland syndrome, and people can feel like they're totally alone in this condition. That was the case for me anyway. She doesn't remember experiencing when she was a child. What I do remember is one night when I was 16, and I suddenly had the sensation that my teeth had grown 10 sizes too big for my mouth.
10 sizes?
That there were
10.
How did she know
a lot
it was
of
10?
sizes.
A lot of teeth.
How do they? How are the sizes
what's
done
the
with
metric?
teeth?
Yeah.
What size are my teeth? So now I need to figure out what size
your
my teeth
your teeth are one size.
One size fits all, baby.
You have one size. She had 10 sizes.
10.
10 sizes.
She felt there was no way she could bite down without them crumbling apart. She remembered the sensation of her legs growing too big for the bed. I remember feeling trapped, unable to move, as my room became too small for my body before I shrank down to the size of a doll.
Whoa.
Says it happens to her like once a month. Something like that.
I like that it says, for me, Alice in Wonderland syndrome doesn't happen too often. I'd say I have an episode about once a month. That sounds like a lot. Like,
to me, that's, yeah.
The closest thing, like, if it's even similar to the thing that I remember experiencing, like, you know, when I've been like really sick and you got a serious fever and like perceptions are way off, you know, you close your eyes and you feel like, I don't know, you're way bigger than you should be and things are way smaller than, like, I don't know, your perception's way off. It's happened like 3 times in my life and I love it. I miss it. I wish that could happen more often. She's like, so this once
big
a month.
This big head thing that happened to me, you think that might be pretty cool?
Yeah,
cool experience. It was kind of weird.
Yeah, I think it's kind of. I mean, it's, you know, it depends on how you cope with it. You know, if it scares you, then yeah, I can imagine it's not very pleasant. But if it's just kind of like, oh, this is really wigging me out, bro.
I remember, and I drifted off, and I remember getting up and going like touching I'm like, okay, that seems right.
Everything seems to be in its place.
Yeah. I mean, at your home and it's a safe place to happen, that's fine. But you're driving down the interstate and all of a sudden you have one of these episodes where your hands are like 4 times the size, or 10 times. Maybe 10 times.
10 sizes too big.
10 sizes too big, and you'd have to pull over to the side of the road and wait till your brain figured out that your hands were normal again, and then get on.
You can't turn. You
Yeah.
can't turn. Your like hands are hitting the window, and
That's right. 10 sizes too big.
Well, I mean, now she does say that, in the same sentence, she says it, about once a month, but it's always when she's in bed trying to sleep.
There
Mm.
you go. Shit, I've got it. I've got that thing.
That's it.
You've got it, man.
Maybe it'll happen again.
You
I
should
can
be
report.
proud. Yeah.
Maybe it'll happen to my dick. That'd be awesome. I mean, if it grows,
This thing
if it
feels
shrinks,
so huge.
if it shrinks.
No, it's your hands your hands grow and your dick shrinks.
Yeah,
You can't even get a hold on it. You can't even
I need the
grab it.
opposite.
Trump sentence.
You're like,
It's 10 sizes too big.
10 sizes too big.
small.
Now, if my dick is 10 sizes too big and my hands are 10 sizes too small,
that's equally troubling.
you can't even jerk off.
Yeah.
You're just like,
You might-
I mean, at that time, you just have to use your arms. Your hands would be
you'd have
fine.
you're just hugging it, like, yeah.
Yeah, you
my-
just
use my elbow crease.
You're just knocking it back and forth.
Yeah. Oh, I hope that happens. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I hope it happens to me.
What a great story to tell.
Joe, if you're still there, have you ever experienced this?
Yeah.
Join late.
He's still
Where's
in
Becca?
chat.
Becca's working. That's where Becca's at.
Yeah, Becca got stuck at work. Let's go to somebody else. We've got a bunch of stuff today. So Steve-O, what else you got?
I got a Facebook thing from Patrick.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
So I found this out yesterday, and this is awesome. This is from Finland, and it's on ESPN UK. It is the first ever heavy metal knitting world championship.
This is
my
gonna
God.
be good.
This is gonna be. Where do you guys come up with this shit? This is brilliant.
What? I didn't come up with it. I wish I did.
What the fuck?
So yeah, they got a band going, and the dude's just knitting.
I mean, he's giving it hell, man.
And
Show all the people looking super confused.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
so-
yeah.
Oh, and sumo wrestlers.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's just so weird.
Wow. Wow.
I don't know if there's a
Japanese
goal
band,
on
different
to
Japanese band.
what they have to knit, but apparently she was the
Looks like-
best.
The Japanese won.
Oh,
Thank you for using the proper pronoun.
that's right.
Thank you.
She looks like she was. Yeah.
Look at all these confused townspeople.
Yeah, they
None
do.
of them are wearing masks.
A lot of
Where's the
metalheads,
social
a lot of people that
distancing?
just like to knit coming together.
Well, this took place on July 12th of 2019.
Oh, everything's fine back then.
Yeah, the good old days.
Yeah, the world
I
was
was about to
perfect
say-
back then.
I was about to say, Dave, you're part of the problem right now, Dave.
What?
None of these people are wearing masks.
Oh, your buttons.
Yeah, well, that's I would go to that. I'd go to that event.
Yeah, that looks fun.
Yeah,
I'd
if
be
it was,
interested to see what
if it was like a block
they
away.
have to knit. Yeah.
That Japanese band, they look like they could tour with P-Lander Z. That is definitely
Oh,
a show I
definitely.
would go to. Yeah.
She's probably making like a cock warmer is what she's knitting there.
Now, how does it happen that there's enough bands that they can compete? There's just enough bands that like somebody in the band knows how to knit, and someone was like, "Hey, let's have a heavy metal knitting championship."
I don't know. We should research the history on that.
Isn't it? It's Finland, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's par for the course.
Yeah,
I mean, Brad's right.
heavy metal knitting world championship. Okay, here we go.
It's in Finland. They're like really into like hardcore like black metal, death metal. Isn't that like big?
Oh,
over
Yeah,
there?
it's like the
I don't
scream
know
metal that you
Oh,
can't
there's a
understand.
website.
Yeah.
Oh,
Heavy metal
There it is.
knitting!
Okay.
Oh, they
well,
skipped
They skipped this year.
2020.
skip this year.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
We can go next
There you
year.
go.
check out
What
our
the
story.
fuck?
Your
Ego body
concerns
metal.
are allayed there, Dave.
All right.
Concerns are they've postponed.
Heavy metal knitting, the oddball of all sports, crafts, and hobbies, was coined during the darkest and coldest hours of the Finnish winter in Joensuu, Finland. The year was 2018, and the term was said aloud by a journalist in a radio interview covering local handcrafts professionals. Knitters were knitting for the whole duration of the interview, of course, which eventually led to the magical question that apparently no one had asked before. Is it possible for a knitter to knit eyes closed, hands behind neck, like Yngwie Malmsteen
Yngwie Malmsteen.
does play his guitar? I think this is a bad translation. Well, of course it is, was the reply. And there it was, the idea of a knitter as a lead performer in a band playing heavy metal music. Let's make it a competition. I think that's enough.
I know where my next vacation is.
We're
It's gonna
going
be-
to Finland.
There's over 50 heavy metal bands per 100,000 Finnish citizens,
Good God.
Okay.
Good.
and
Sounds wonderful.
hundreds of thousands of knitting hobbyists.
And that's you figure at least 4 people per band, so that's 200 people per 100,000 Finnish citizens that are in bands.
Yeah.
That's actually not too bad. That sounds about right. I bet it's a
Hey,
higher
Google, what's
ratio.
the population of Finland?
Okay.
It's
Let's
certainly
see.
not infinite.
The 2019 competition attracted 26 acts from 13 countries.
5 million.
Yeah, I see that down there. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, that's how you got to put the word out. These people traveled all this way?
Yeah.
Yeah, Finland's where you go for heavy metal and knitting, apparently.
I
Like,
guess.
finally, I'm going to be recognized for my one thing. I mean, my two things: knitting and heavy metal.
There's a band called Opeth, and I think they're considered black metal, but they're like one of the biggest. And they always call them Scandinavian death metal. Death metal, not black metal. That would be Finland, right? Scandinavian.
Yeah, they.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Way to go, Opeth.
I
Hey, now that it's something.
It's things happening. And
It's a thing.
humans doing stuff.
you know, I like. I mean, my favorite band of all time is King Crimson, and they it could be said to be one of the progenitors of metal, but I don't really like actual metal because at some point it's all so hard and fast all at once that it just blends into a boring kind of.
Mm-hmm.
I just lose interest.
Yeah.
Listening to
I'm like,
free
you
metal,
people
man.
think you're like really heavy right now. All I'm hearing is just this shit's boring me.
Right. Yeah, it's guitar masturbation, most of it.
Ugh.
I
Well, I'm
honestly
fine
can't
with
tell.
that.
Like I used to kind of at least be in the scene, you know. I didn't play like in any metal bands, but we played with them, and it was always hard for me to understand how any of them were differentiated. Why was one band revered and another was not? I never really knew. I think it had more to do with like their position just in the local scene, like the individuals, you know, their party antics, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because that would usually draw out a big crowd if they were just well known and always had a, you know, put on a good
Did
show.
something crazy on
did something
stage,
nuts, yeah. But in the real like metal scene, I don't know what differentiates one. There's one band from Maryville called Whitechapel that like hit it big within like 6 months of forming, and they're good. But I don't know what differentiates them from other bands that were kind of doing the same thing. But I don't
Right.
have
Well,
the ear for it.
Brad and I saw Baby Metal, and what differentiates them is three cute girls
Right.
in
Singing in
Doing-
mostly Japanese.
doing cutesy shit
Right.
while headbanging stuff. What else we got, Steve-O?
Let's see. Who's up next? Who sent the programmer karma?
Hey, that's me. This is the reason why
This is the
I
one I'm
wanted
not
to.
supposed to show before.
Right there you go.
Oh,
I'll show some brisket.
it's a nice piece of steak.
Hey,
yeah,
brisket.
Little brisket there.
That looks good. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
Well, I've been trying to get to streaming again. You know, it's been a busy week in the streaming world. All kinds of things happening and Mixer going away, so I'm trying to do some other things and not having a whole lot of success.
Hey, get out there and
Yeah,
like
you know.
Crosstown Beano on Facebook. I did.
No, don't do that yet.
Oh, I got the
It's
invite,
not
so
quite
I hit it.
working. I mean, I tried to make it work, and maybe it worked, and then I saw and it didn't work. But nevertheless, I might have to give it all up because I don't want what happened to this person to happen to me. So this might be the ultimate excuse for me to not stream anymore.
Is
There
that
you go,
what you're
Steve-O.
looking for,
Chew it up.
Dave? Are you looking for your ultimate excuse?
Yeah, this is the ultimate excuse right here for me not to do it. And that's this streamer. If you are to believe them, I won't read the whole article because it's from TMZ. But
Should I show the
yes,
article?
this streamer. Yeah. Go ahead and show it. But she claims to say that she was shocked by lightning. She was struck by lightning during her live stream.
Wow.
And she showed a picture of her controller, and it was around the USB. It was melted, but you know, I don't know if you need to believe this stuff or not. But there you go. I don't want to get struck by lightning.
Where's
That's
the
why
video of the
okay.
live stream?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really.
I mean,
Oh, is this it? The shocking
Yeah.
moment. Oh, here we go. Oh,
Did
let's
it-
see. Are we gonna
Where
get
were
shut down
her-
for this?
where were her boobs at the time?
I do not know. Whoa.
You hate to see the crossbar, you really do.
You got to be able to see
All
that
right,
cross.
Rocket League. Yeah. I guess that was it.
That was it. It just happened.
That was it. She went.
She's still playing.
I would say.
Yeah, what the fuck's
Wait, is
going on
that
here?
really her playing?
I would assume she's
Unless
she
she's
might be-
streaming
Could
it.
she be spectating?
She
maybe?
could be spectating or commentating. Yeah, she sounds like she's in pain.
Is that what that is? That sounded like something else.
Or something good, maybe. I don't
I
know.
mean, girls do cry
that
when they get
controller.
hurt. I mean, it makes sense to me.
Hold on. Go what? Go
Right.
down. Let me see that controller.
Oh yeah, here's some evidence.
Yeah. You have to look around the
You hate to see the crossbar,
USB.
you really do.
Let me pause that.
So it's a PS4 controller that she must have had plugged in and charging.
It doesn't look.
That would
Or
fry her
unless she's using a
PlayStation
PC.
though.
Well, she's using a PC. Yeah, it would definitely.
I don't know. I call
It was
BS.
still- yeah.
Yeah, that would have fried her fucking PlayStation. It would have fried fucking all the shit.
Yeah,
if
her
it's gonna-
stream would have been done.
Yeah.
if that was
I
the
think
case.
it's a good move because most of these Twitch girls, when they want to get views, like they have a wardrobe malfunction. Like they'll be doing something and then like, oh, my shirt fell off, and or like they'll bend over and oops, I didn't have panties on.
Yeah.
Why didn't she take a picture of her hand?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good question.
I
Calling
mean,
BS on all
I
this.
read it, and really, the title's what got me because I was going, well, that's it. That's the excuse. I don't want to get struck by lightning. That was
Hey.
really where it was.
we were setting up to do no more popcorn online, just like we're doing right now
Yeah, it's so
on
fake.
Oh,
Monday.
Yeah.
On Monday, and that storm rolled in, and I had some serious lightning right over this camper.
Yeah.
And at one point, it hit
It
really
kept you
close
out, yeah.
nearby, and my power flashed out, and had to wait for the internet to come back and reconnect. But it scared the shit out of me, man. It's fucking loud in here.
I thought I was going to get struck by lightning today. Right before I was supposed to leave work, we got a bunch of calls, and one of the towers went down. So I had to drive to the tower and check on the box at the base of the tower. And at one point, I'm just hearing thunder like right overhead and seeing lightning and shit. I'm like, I am right next to a fucking giant cell phone tower that's going to get struck by lightning.
Well, don't those towers have rods that will basically catch the lightning and ground it
Yeah, I mean, they ground it, but when you're standing on the ground and the ground's
right
wet,
next to it?
yeah, it's
that
not,
makes sense.
doesn't make me feel a lot better.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the fact that
I don't know how that
she
works.
totally continues playing.
Yeah, no. Yeah. The scream sound fake, the
Crossbar,
cry
you really do.
sound fake.
That's.
Then she drops the controller, supposedly.
Ah!
Is this
Yeah.
just like stock footage of someone playing Rocket League? Because
Maybe.
Well, it says a short time later she got back on the stream and provided an update.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if the car we're watching is not actually
I just got
her.
Yeah, it must be.
Yeah, no, it's fake.
Yeah, I don't get this at all.
From somebody who sees
Verbals-
a lot of shit that gets struck by lightning, that controller does not look like it got struck by lightning.
Verbal assault listeners, get online
Scroll
and
down.
harass this
So-
woman relentlessly.
You
She's
see
a liar. She's a thought.
around the USB slot,
It looks
there
like a
should
dog
be,
chewed
like,
on it.
black. It should be fucking black, like soot came out of it or something.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what shit looks like. That just looks like somebody was fucking with the controller.
Yeah,
and
someone was
hit
just
it a couple times.
trying to get into the port or something.
Yeah, that's not even melted. The melted controller, LOL.
Well,
Huh. Well, it's
There
interesting.
you go.
her.
It's interesting.
I got
told her.
It's something
Pictures of shit that's been fried by lightning that
For-
I've seen.
something for
It
our
could
minions
totally.
to
I
get
mean,
on.
that could totally happen. That
Yeah.
could happen.
It could.
But it would fry your PlayStation too.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
shit that gets hit by lightning is dead. It's dead. Yeah, no, that's BS. And plus, you're telling me she doesn't have a power bar like for a PlayStation, her TV, other shit. Power bar would have helped protect it, but
Yeah,
or
and
at
she'd
least
have
could
just been
protect
off.
it.
Yeah. It
yeah,
just-
she'd have just gotten knocked off.
Verbal assaults on your case.
We're getting to the bottom of this shit.
Skeptics.
Who sent me
Skeptics.
the one about chief federal judge in LA resigning?
That's me. All right, before you bring it up,
All right. What's this?
Oh, you're doing great, Steve. There you go. Just show that guy. There you go. So let's see, Dave. You're a clever guy. You're doing great. You're doing the stream. I'd even call you street smart. You're doing all right.
Oh, if anybody on here is street smart, it's Dave.
Hmm.
Yeah, Dave.
my
are you
God.
offended? Are
He's
you
been
offended right
around
now,
this
Dave?
town.
I'm not offended. No.
You're not offended? Are you sure?
He's seasoned.
Pretty sure.
He's well seasoned.
Okay.
Street
Well,
smart.
What part of, so something I said in there, which is probably very obvious, a judge said that about an African American woman who works in his office as a court clerk, and he was saying nothing but good things about her.
Mhm.
And then he said something that I just said to Dave,
Uh-oh.
and it was called racist, and he had to resign because of it.
Hmm.
What was that thing?
Asking if she was offended?
Well, I know what it is. I heard.
You know
that
what it
already.
is because Steve-O showed it.
No, I actually saw this story. Yeah, I've already
Oh.
seen this story, but
Yeah,
What?
so he's praising one of the court clerks and calls her street smart, and because she's African American,
Oh.
people computed that to think that
Oh.
She comes
it's
from the
racist.
streets.
No, that I mean, all it is just means like you're savvy and you know how to deal with types of people that may or may not have the best living conditions.
Yeah, well, I always took it to mean that you have common sense.
Yeah, that's
you
what
can-
I was going to say.
you can
Common
adapt.
That's what he
sense.
meant it as.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
now that everybody is so riled up and so hypersensitive and just looking to crucify everything, the Puritans have just gone crazy and said this guy has to resign because that's racist and we don't need a racist person like that in a position of power in the court system.
So did the woman herself have any problem with it?
So I don't think so, but that has gotten no publicity, I guess, or it's just she never commented on it, like one way or another. But yeah, it's just, let's see. Let me scan this article real quick. No, he just said he has to resign because since people say it was insensitive what'd he say? He said, my statement was wrong. It was directed at my critics, not Miss Gray. I said it with no ill will or disrespect towards people of color. My statement was an insensitive and graphic overreaction to the criticism that was leveled against me. I should have never made that comparison. Oh, the comparison he's talking about. In a moment of anger and frustration, I said to Miss Gray that people are criticizing me. The people criticizing me were equating my well-intended use of the term street smart with the reprehensible conduct of a police officer putting his knee on a person's neck. So people, this shit is starting to get too far.
It's starting to go too far. The context,
because this is just like the people. Well, here I can read the whole article real quick.
Well, let's see. What is this?
Chief Judge of the Central District of California, which includes Los Angeles, has resigned over racially charged comments about a black court official. U.S. District Court Cormac J. Carney made the announcement in an email, and he says that he has apologized to the woman, Kiri K. Gray. Cool name. But he says he knows it will not put the matter to rest. Quote, there will be a division in the court, unnecessarily negative and hurtful publicity, and a diversion from the court's essential mission of administering justice if I were to continue serving as the chief district judge. Quote, Carney said that in an email obtained by Eyewitness News. I cannot allow the court to become politicized and embroiled in controversy. Gray has served as a federal court employee for 35 years. Carney will remain a federal judge, but another jurisdiction or another, I'm guessing, justice will take over the duties of chief district judge. Carney has just started a 4-year term, June 1st. So he didn't even get a month into being a chief before that happened. But yeah. So,
yeah, I don't think they really give the context, just his apology.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, but the thing is, these
Why
kind
would
of
you give context?
these cancel culture people
Yeah,
don't
why would
care
you give
about
context?
context. They don't care about context.
Context doesn't matter. It's just how people feel.
They openly say they don't care about context.
Yeah, that's fucking retarded.
When remember Count Dankula, the Nazi pug video?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Literally told him the context didn't matter. It was only the perceived defense, which they had to shop around and find somebody to say they were offended at it. That was the only thing that mattered. It's not the context of it being a joke. It's just, was somebody offended? There was a guy in Scotland like last week. He was this guy was cheating cheating with his wife. So his wife was banging this Irish dude. This guy's Scottish, and he called him a fucking leprechaun.
LOL.
I got charged and fined like $400, something like that.
What?
For calling a guy a leprechaun? The guy's fucking his wife. He calls him a leprechaun. Can you imagine what kind of fucking pussy asshole then calls the police and says, "Oh, he called me a leprechaun.
I was just fucking his wife.
He's racist."
I'm there fucking his wife. It comes in and says, "You dirty leprechaun." I can't do another.
I can't believe you told me that.
They actually.
I demand you authorities do something about this immediately. Yeah, what a fucking crazy. This episode of Black Mirror sucks.
Yeah.
He had a bottle of whiskey in his hand the whole time too. It was really weird. I mean, the leprechaun. I mean,
Gotcha.
The Scotsman didn't have a scotch. Come on now.
I mean it's it's.
Yeah, I was kind of going through this. It's just the apology. There's nothing about why he even said anything about it. Should we? It's fucking 15 seconds.
He was just complimenting her. Nah, we don't need to. We don't need to watch that. He was complimenting her on like a phone call, and somebody got upset somewhere. But it doesn't really say who got upset and where it came out, because most of this shit it spreads through Twitter and different shit, and then somebody calls this guy. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Patrick.
Oh, I was saying there's like now a petition for a Marvel movie's name to be changed from Captain America: Civil War to remove Civil War right now.
Oh my fucking god.
Yeah.
It is a general term.
I know.
Yeah, it's
given to wars that are like that take place within a certain community, two sides
within a country.
two sides of the same community.
Yep.
Yeah, no, but all the fucking dumb people out there are just like, oh, it makes me feel bad. Oh, we gotta change it.
Realtors in Texas are now saying that they're not going to use the term master bedroom and master bathroom.
Oh, I saw that too.
Oh,
yeah.
What?
Yeah.
No more master bedroom.
Because it evokes memories of racism.
My God.
To say the word master.
I remember when they had to get rid of the master and slave hard drive terms back in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
So we kind of got to go just to that idiocracy kind of terminology where we go, baiting?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm baiting now.
Go away, I'm baiting.
We won't. I'm baiting.
As you say master in front of the bait, triggering.
My wife's retired, but she's doing fine. She's a pilot now.
What?
Exactly.
Don't worry.
God, I love that movie. I want to watch that movie again.
Oh yeah, no, it's
Be
good.
like a double feature, Idiocracy followed up by Demolition Man, and
Yes.
you'll really get a sense of where we're at.
Is that the
today.
one where Taco Bell's the only restaurant?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the franchise wars.
He doesn't know how 3 seashells work.
I don't know if these seashells work. Unbelievable. Let's see. I think the only thing left is your stuff, Nathan. I don't know
all
if
right.
it all runs together.
Don't we have a voicemail?
Oh, we have a voicemail.
Yeah,
yeah.
let's do the
Let's
voicemail.
get to the
and
voicemail.
then- yeah. Oh wait, and I have a question I have to ask Dave too.
Okay. Now I saw the Google tries to translate it into text. The only words it said were Jose. There was nothing else. All
Okay.
right, so someone try to figure out what this is.
That's a turkey call.
Yeah.
It's
That's
not
Jerry
It's got to be
Bateman.
Jerry.
It's
yeah.
not
He's
being
Jerry,
done very well.
Jerry Bate.
It's a duck or goose collar.
No, that's a duck. I'm pretty sure, I mean a turkey.
It's a turkey call. It's just not being used very well. That's not what a turkey sounds
Ouch.
Ooh,
It does when you have the whistle in your mouth and you're busy baiting.
shots fired.
like.
Wow.
I mean,
Can't see.
I've
me
heard
winking,
turkeys, and
man.
they don't really. I don't even think it's supposed to be a turkey, because that's just not what turkeys sound like.
I mean, that's what my papa used to turkey, and that's about the way he would do it.
Yeah, you got like the stick.
Yeah,
With
It's kind of like it, but it's more like a
I don't think it's a turkey. I think it's like a geese collar or something.
geese call. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. That sounds
Somebody-
more like it.
all right, well, whoever fucking sent that, why don't you send us another one? Tell us what the fuck it is.
Yeah, why would you do that? Is that supposed to mean something?
Yeah, I was hoping at the end they'd be like, "This is what that was," but no.
Like, this is the state of
This
America.
is what
right
it sounds
now.
like when doves cry.
And Google thought that was saying Jose.
Oh, you know what it is? Here's what it is. That's the drones coming for us. That's the secret.
Mm.
Since birds aren't real,
Oh,
Yeah, that's the
Oh.
terror that's coming for us.
When you hear that noise behind you, it's too
Yeah,
late.
that's
It's too late.
or maybe it is a
Not
goose.
run.
Maybe it's a goose because we talked about that goose attack thing last night. That's what.
Do you think you
Yeah,
can
maybe it's a
play it?
goose.
Can you play it in reverse, like back Marcus, back it, so we can hear the real message?
I don't. Man, I wish I could. I don't know. I'm not sure Windows Media Player can do that.
Sure it can.
Yeah, I don't think it's a turkey. I go with goose. It's closest to a goose.
I don't know. Windows, Bill Gates, Antichrist, all these things tie together.
Jose,
Oh,
Steve,
man.
I want you to pull up that video. It's the one I sent to everybody.
Okay, yeah.
I want to start
this
this
guy?
off. Yeah, I'm going to start this off with my whole Corona.
Is this is this before the question you have to ask Dave?
Oh yeah, it is. Dave, remember last week we talked about squatting on top of the toilet to take a shit? You said you would try it out.
Oh my
I
god,
do,
did
sir.
you really?
I did.
Hell yeah.
No way.
How it do?
It was all right.
Oh.
Yeah,
Completely capable. It's doable.
it's doable.
I mean, I'm doing
Yeah.
it now. Doing it right
Yeah.
now.
Only for someone that is capable of sitting on their knees or squatting
Yeah.
down for long periods of time.
I mean, the ease of access to wiping is remarkable. I mean,
Oh.
you can't do it in this chair, but it's really good. I mean, it's
You
state of the art stuff.
You
Man.
can go front
State
or
of the
Yeah.
back. You just
Front
have
or
to
back.
be careful not to get it on like the backs of your heels.
Yeah, and you get the dangly drips from the pee, on your arm if you wipe
You just
from the front.
you just get your balls and tuck them under your chin, and then it's all out of the way.
Well, I just set those on the vanity.
Okay.
Oh, the vanity.
So you'd say pretty good. Are you gonna try it again? Maybe.
Is it more trouble than
You
it's
know-
worth?
More trouble than it's worth.
Yeah.
More trouble. Yeah.
Okay.
Because you can fall. I didn't get it right the first time.
Yeah.
There was a trip to Home Depot for a new toilet seat.
It's a little towel ring, and it's like, I got, low center of gravity when I'm sitting like that. But on top of that, it could be precarious.
Yeah.
Got a
I
little
could see if
vertigo.
you did it over and over again, it'd be like
Yeah.
perching like a bird pooping.
Okay. Yeah.
So there you go.
All right.
There you go.
I was prepared, bro.
Tested.
Tested.
So let's go to this video. This is the article says journalist. I don't know why, if it is or if it isn't. You never know. But this
Yeah.
is a guy that confronted his town council about the lockdowns in California, and it was, it's quite entertaining.
Thank you. Next up is John Ziegler, and then Deborah Baber will be in after.
Oh, hey, look at her. She's got the excessive sanitization of the
After
thing
waiting
before
for
he
2
comes up.
hours and now getting 2 minutes, I'll get right to the point. This board is pretending that for the last 3 months, your emperor, Dr. Levin, has not been against a mask declaration.
By the way, I have to add that my pediatrician's name was Dr. Levitin. Might be the same guy.
Oh shit! He
Now, all of a
almost
sudden,
had the
we're
same
pretending
name.
that masks are everything, even forcing speakers to use masks. I would like the board to take a position. Was Dr. Levin wrong for those 3 months? And if he was this wrong, why has he not been removed? Why has he not been fired for being so catastrophically wrong? Or do you not really believe he was wrong? You're just wearing these masks because it is a signal of your great virtue. because for the last 3 months, we have not worn them. And Ventura County has done outstandingly well and continues to do outstandingly well because we are not Los Angeles. We are not New York City. We never were going to be any of those things. Ironically, this is one of the few things Dr. Levin was actually right about. He has been wrong about everything. He is the one who told us we would have 400 to 600 hospitalizations a day. He revised that to 200 to 400 a day. We still haven't reached that in 1 day. We're barely over 200 for the entire ordeal that you guys have put us through. We now are panicked over 51 total hospitalizations in a county with 8 hospitals. Can you people do math? Can you please do basic math and understand where we are on this? This is not a crisis. You, however, have created one. You, in an effort to try to prevent all death, when we've had 43 deaths, have now ended all relevant life. And you should all be ashamed of yourselves. And this will never be forgotten, ever be forgotten. You will all be held accountable eventually, in this life or the next. You all better hope there is no hell, because when you die, that's where you're going. And guess what? You're not going to be dying of COVID either. Thank you.
I like the last slide. You're not going to be dying of COVID either.
Yeah.
You are going to hell.
Yeah, I think the thing about going to hell is a little kind of weird that he threw that in there, but
It's a hair too far.
Well, he makes up for it by the last statement.
Yeah.
If you do die, it won't be from COVID. That's what really kind of brings it
Yeah.
back to. The funny thing, he talks about 52 hospitalizations. So Patrick mentioned the Knox County this just today, saying they're gonna go to mandatory masks in public, inside any building in public, basically. What brought that about was in the last, I think it would say 3 weeks. So 3 weeks ago, they were at 12. We were at 12 COVID hospitalizations in Knox County. And I think, if I remember the article correctly, Knox County actually does have 8 hospitals as well. So we went from 12 hospitalizations to 51. And that's what caused this mask thing to come into play, even though overall it might have changed this week, but as of the article I looked at from last week, the overall active cases had actually reduced. The active cases had reduced, but there was a jump in the people hospitalized.
Okay.
So that has kind of spurred their decision to kind of try to do this.
There's been more testing, right?
And there has been more testing. Now, the thing about that is that I want to bring up, tying into that, is Steve-O, if you'll pull up that the Atlantic article. I'm not going to read this whole article, but I just want to briefly go over part of this. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is conflating the results of 2 different types of coronavirus tests, distorting several important metrics and providing the country with an inaccurate picture of the state of the pandemic. We've learned that the CDC is making, at best, a debilitating mistake, combining test results that diagnose current coronavirus infections with test results that measure whether someone has ever had the virus. So what they're doing is,
so they've got the antibody test.
Antibody test. So you take the antibody test, and it says, okay, you have antibodies. That's a coronavirus. That's a count. You take a coronavirus test to see if you have it. That's a count.
Right.
That could even be the same person. I would like to, because I've heard people talk about getting these tests, and it's not like they're taking all this information. It's not like you go into a database. So it is possible that you're getting tested for coronavirus and you have it. And then let's say you get 2 weeks later, you feel better and you go, well, I want to take a test to see if it's clear, if I have antibody. You take an antibody test and it says you got antibodies. Okay, now that's 2.
Yeah. And
there also is a problem. And if you read the article, there's a problem with they're giving the wrong test to the wrong people. So like, say somebody that does have coronavirus, but very light symptoms, they take the antibody test. Well, the antibody test won't tell you that, will give you a negative on the coronavirus test. So it's like, all these fucking numbers get thrown around and nobody actually knows what the counts are. And all of these states are mixing all of these numbers together and saying, and the article goes in, okay, some of the states have now gone and said, oh, well, yeah, that's probably a bad idea. Maybe we shouldn't be
passing
doing
legislation that could send people to jail over not wearing a mask.
And it's like an active, okay, it's like they just want the number to be bigger. Let's just keep that number getting bigger. But if you've got obviously if you test and you have 0 symptoms and you have antibodies, you don't have the virus.
Right.
That does not belong to be counted along with a positive test result.
Right. And if it is, then it should be counted as not as like that week in terms of, we're trying to keep track of how many new cases and stuff. It shouldn't be counted as a new case. It should be somehow put in a different column of
straight into recovered.
This was someone that had it already.
Straight into recovered, had it already, but not added to this huge this total.
And definitely some column that says, they had it, but had no negative effects from it. Because
I mean, they make a thing every day that I get that they have recoveries.
Yeah,
I get it's part of the WBIR app, and when the health department puts that out, it just pushes it to my phone, so it has the total recoveries. So it's keeping track of that.
Of note,
I think that's good.
Of note, up until a couple of weeks ago, if you were subscribed to the Brevard emergency whatever text messaging thing, they were sending out not quite daily, but like every sometimes it'd be daily, sometimes every other day or whatever, and it would be the new case count or total case count, and it would just say it right in the text and how many deaths and stuff. Not anymore. It's just the CD, or they're always the same. I don't know if I can find it quickly, but it's like, are you venturing out? Read these new CDC guidelines about venturing out, and it doesn't say anything about the actual case count. Oh, here we go.
Americans, would you like guidelines for venturing out?
Venturing out. The CDC gives these tips for being prepared and staying safe regarding COVID-19, and then the one before it is getting deliveries / takeout. CDC gives tips for blah, blah, blah. And then venturing out. Residents asked to stay vigilant. There's no more case counts. It's all just, we have new guidelines now. And I don't know if that's, I don't know if that speaks to there being more cases now or less cases. I kind of think that there's probably more because I think Florida is going up. But here's the
thing.
Where's the death
it's like
count?
Going up toward what? Yeah, it's like going up. Okay, what are the influenza numbers for the last 5 months?
That's a good question. Here, maybe we can find that quickly.
What are those numbers? We know that they are reporting. They're reporting deaths that look like COVID. They're just reporting them as COVID. We already know doctors have said they're doing this. They've said they're taking, if you die of a heart attack while you have COVID, they're counting that as COVID.
So they get money for that too.
Because they're getting money for that. These are things that are true. And it's like, you guys ever heard of you ever heard the term panopticon?
No.
Nope.
Mm-mm.
Panopticon is, there was this philosopher from the 1700s. I can't remember his fucking name. But anyway, he came up with this idea for a prison. This was a prison to have the fewest guards possible to look after the most inmates.
There's one like that in Cuba.
Yeah. So there's one in India that's literally been there for a couple hundred years based on this guy's design. Anyway, so you have a central tower. The warden is in the central tower, and there are guards in the central tower with smaller windows. And in the circle all around the tower are the cells. The cells all face inward. They're all windows. So basically the guards and the warden can always see anywhere into any cell, whereas the inmates cannot see when they are being watched. The idea is you never know when you are being watched.
Right.
There could always be somebody watching you, but you never know.
Mm-hmm.
To me, this idea of having a mandatory mask law, it's prescriptive. It's not restrictive. It's telling you, okay, you have to wear a certain item of clothing on you. And even if you don't wear it, basically a panopticon has now been erected. When you go outside now, you have to think, okay, I am now, just for existing, for walking outside in public, I can now be observed by a guard. There is now a police officer could see me and literally could find me for walking down the street without a mask on. And it's like, it's a nexus of control. Okay, well, I guess I better, I mean, they probably won't be looking, but maybe they will. And I don't want to get a misdemeanor fine. I don't want to possibly go to jail. Technically, I could go to jail for 30 days. So I guess I better just duck my head and put on my mask, even though I'm not going to talk to anybody. I'm not coming into contact with me. And honestly, if somebody doesn't want to come in close, talk to me, then don't. Right? If I'm not wearing a mask and you're wearing a mask and you don't want to talk to me, fucking stand 10 feet away. I'm not running up and grabbing you and be like, oh, you gotta
come talk to me.
Get in my face. I'm gonna tell you about the panopticon, how it's trying to control your mind.
They'll say, tell me more.
It's a fucking it's a fucking eye. It's a big fucking red eye on a tower looking out. It's always looking out for you. It wants to know what you're doing, where you're going, and if you cross it, if it decides to pin its gaze on you, then you're in trouble.
Is that where we're going?
Yeah, I think that's where we're going. The funny thing is, you guys that have Siri or Alexa or whatever, that's another panopticon, right? I mean, and everybody knows that thing's listening to you 24/7. And we even have evidence that all your audios being put in a database. There are people that have listened to that shit.
Yep.
The thing about it is you can shrug it off because you go, well, what's the point of them listening to it, really?
Right.
There's no, it's not a government looking for a crime. It's just a corporation trying to sell you advertising or whatever they're going to do with it. But there's not that thing that's going to say, okay, I'm going to control you ultimately at the point of a gun. And that's what this law is. Any law, or they even decree, I mean, they're not even laws now, they're just decrees from on high. All of those things are ultimately enforced at the point of a gun. And that's the difference between, say, your Siri or a law like this. It's to enforce control. Even when that cop or whoever might not be watching, you still have that fear of, well, fuck, I could get in trouble for this.
Is there
and
any similarity to speed limits though? Like if you're out in public on a road and there's a speed limit, you are being watched, or there's the risk of being watched, and if you go over this speed that we have ordained as the safe speed, then you're endangering other people.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, as far as the idea of the panopticon is the same thing. It's the idea of I'm being watched. If I do this thing that we have deemed to be illegal, to me the difference is it's my person. It's an item that you were telling me I have to wear. Like seatbelt laws. I don't agree with seatbelt laws.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to wear a seatbelt, that's up to you. I say your kids are a different story. Yeah. But if you want to not, I had a buddy. He's like, I don't wear seatbelts. I'm like, why? He's like, I was pulling out of this place late one night and I got T-boned. I wasn't wearing a seatbelt. That car came into my door, knocked me to the other side of the car. I got injured, but I didn't die. He's like, if I had been strapped in to that seat, I would have died. And he won't wear it. Now, I wear them because
I understand that. But statistically,
but for the most part, it's gonna. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But he has the choice.
He has the choice. Yeah.
He decided because of this thing that happened to him, he wasn't going to wear a seatbelt. And I agree. It's the same kind of thing. Like if I'm going out in public and if you don't want to be near me, don't come near me if I'm wearing a mask and you're worried about this shit.
Right.
I'm not walking around spitting on doorknobs. I'm not slobbering on doorknobs when I go out to the fucking to the
Slop on my
Walmart or
knob,
whatever.
like corn on the cob.
Exactly.
Check in with me. Do your job.
Anybody have any comments on that until I go to the next thing that ties into this Corona shit?
What saddens me is that there's even any talk about having mandates like this, when it would be nice if we could have good data-driven suggestions made by real scientists that aren't, worried about whether or not they're going to keep their job or whatever, giving us the truth about it. And all along, like, this thing, we should have dealt with this already. This should have been over. If we had data-driven decisions made a long time ago, then we wouldn't be in this predicament.
I think. Well, you're saying it should have been more strict. Are you saying it should have been more strict from the beginning? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know, because I'm not the one to make those kinds of decisions, but I can imagine how if we had seen this coming and we had shut down air travel and done serious quarantining with and actually made good decisions. I think I've said this before about what's essential and what's not, and then sucked it up for like a month, then we may not be in this position.
I think, Steve-O, you're really going to like this last article that I have to go through. I think. Well, let's just go to that. How about we do that?
All right, let's do that.
This is American Institute for Economic Research, the 2006 origins of the lockdown idea. And this is a long article, and I do want to go through it. So feel free to interject.
Buckle up, unless you choose not to.
Exactly. Now begins the grand effort on display in thousands of articles and news broadcasts daily, somehow to normalize the lockdown and all its destruction of the last 2 months. We didn't lock down almost the entire country in 1968 and 1969, 1957, or 1949 to 1952. That is, I remember I talked about one of those cases earlier in another show, or even during 1918. But in a terrifying few days in March 2020, it happened to all of us, causing an avalanche of social, cultural, and economic destruction that will ring through the ages. It's a little. He definitely has his opinion, but let's go through it.
What are the diseases they're referencing? Do you know?
They're different SARS. I mean, the one
I 1918 is probably the Spanish flu. Probably
Spanish flu. They're different COVID type diseases. It's like, I mean, he's got links on all those you can go look at.
Right.
There was nothing normal about it all. We'll be trying to figure out what happened to us for decades hence. How did a temporary plan to preserve hospital capacity turn it? Remember, it was all about let's just flatten the curve. 2 weeks.
Flatten the curve. Yep.
2 weeks, and then we,
maybe 30 days. Okay. 2 weeks was unrealistic, I think.
How did a temporary plan to preserve capacity, hospital capacity, turn into 2 to 3 months of near universal house arrest that ended up causing worker furloughs at 256 hospitals, a stoppage of international travel, a 40% job loss among people earning less than $40,000 a year, devastation of every economic sector, mass confusion and demoralization, a complete ignoring of all fundamental rights and liberties, not to mention the mass confiscation of private property with forced closures of millions of businesses. Whatever the answer is, it's got to be a bizarre tale. What's truly surprising is just how recent the theory behind lockdown and forced distancing actually is. So as far as anyone can tell, the intellectual machinery that made this mess was invented 14 years ago, and not by epidemiologists, but by computer simulation modelers. It was adopted not by experienced doctors. They warned ferociously against it, but by politicians. Let's start with the phrase social distancing, which has mutated into forced human separation. The first I had heard it was in the 2011 movie Contagion. The first time it appeared in the New York Times was February 12, 2006. And this is a quote from the New York Times. If the avian flu goes pandemic while Tamiflu and vaccines are still in short supply, experts say, the only protection most Americans will have is social distancing, which is a new politically correct way of saying quarantine. But distancing also encompasses less drastic measures, like wearing face masks, staying out of elevators, and the elbow bump. Such stratagems, those experts say, will rewrite the ways we interact, at least during the weeks when the waves of influenza are washing over us. Maybe you don't remember that the avian flu of 2006 didn't amount to much. It's true, despite all the extreme warnings about its lethality, the H5N1 didn't turn into much at all. What it did do, however, was send the existing President George W. Bush to the library to read about the 1918 flu and its catastrophic results. He asked for some experts to submit some plans to him about what to do when the real thing comes along. The New York Times in April 22nd of 2020 tells the story from there. 14 years ago, two federal government doctors, Richard Hatchett and Carter Mercer, met with a colleague at a burger joint in suburban Washington for a final review of a proposal they knew would be treated like a piñata, telling Americans to stay home from work and school the next time the country was hit by a deadly pandemic. When they presented their plan not long after, it was met with skepticism and a degree of ridicule by senior officials who, like others in the United States, had grown accustomed to relying on pharmaceutical industry with its ever-growing array of new treatments to confront evolving health challenges. Doctors Hatchett and Mercer were proposing instead that Americans in some places might have to turn back to an approach self-isolation, first widely employed in the Middle Ages. How that idea, born out of a request by President George H.W. Bush to ensure the nation was better prepared for the next contagion disease outbreak, became the heart of the national playbook for responding to a pandemic is one of the untold stories of the coronavirus crisis. It requires the key components Metcher, and Department of Veterans Affairs physician Dr. Hatchett, an oncologist turned White House advisor, to overcome intense initial opposition. It brought their work together with that of a Defense Department team assigned to a similar task. And it had some unexpected detours, including a deep dive into the history of the 1918 Spanish flu and an important discovery kicked off by a high school research project pursued by the daughter of the scientist at the Sandia National Laboratories. The concept of social distancing is now intimately familiar with almost everyone, but as it first made its way through the federal bureaucracy in 2006 and 2007, it was viewed as impractical, unnecessary, and politically infeasible. Notice that in the court of this planning, neither legal nor economic experts were brought in to consult and advise. Instead, it fell to Metcher, formerly of Chicago and an intensive care doctor with no previous expertise in pandemics, and the oncologist Hatchett. But what is the mention of the high school daughter of 14? Her name is Laura M. Glass, and she recently declined to be interviewed when the Albuquerque Journal did a deep dive of this history. Laura, with some guidance from her dad, devised a computer simulation that showed how people, family members, co-workers, students in schools, people in social situations interact. What she discovered was that school kids come in contact with about 140 people a day, more than any other group. Based on that finding, her program showed that in a hypothetical town of 10,000 people, 5,000 would be infected during a pandemic if no measures were taken, but only 500 would be infected if the schools were closed. Laura's name appears on the foundational paper arguing for lockdowns and forced human separation. That paper is Targeted Social Distancing Designs for Pandemic Influenza, and there's a link there. You can read that paper. It set out a model for forced separation and applied it with good results backwards in time to 1957. They conclude with a chilling call for what amounts to a totalitarian lockdown, all stated very matter-of-factly. And here's quoting the article. Implementation of social distancing strategies is challenging. They likely must be imposed for the duration of the local pandemic and possibly until a strain-specific vaccine is developed and distributed. If compliance with the strategy is high over this period, an epidemic within a community can be averted. However, if neighboring communities do not also use these interventions, infected neighbors will continue to introduce influenza and prolong the local epidemic, albeit at a depressed level more easily accommodated by healthcare systems. In other words, it was a high school science experiment that eventually became law of the land and through a circuitous route propelled not by science but politics. The primary author of this paper was Robert J. Glass, a complex system analyst with Sandia National Laboratories. He had no medical training, much less an expertise in immunology or epidemiology. That explains why Dr. D.A. Henderson, who had been the leader of the international effort to eradicate smallpox, completely rejected the whole scheme. He said in the New York Times, it says in the New York Times, Dr. Henderson was convinced that it made no sense to force schools to close or public gatherings to stop. Teenagers would escape their homes to hang out at the mall. School lunch programs would close and impoverished children would not have enough to eat. Hospital staffs would have to have a hard time going to work if their children were at home. The measures embraced by Doctors Metcher and Hatchett would result in significant disruption of the social functioning of communities and result in possible serious economic problems. Dr. Henderson wrote in his own academic paper responding to their ideas. The answer, he insisted, was to tough it out, let the pandemic spread, treat people who get sick, and work quickly to develop a vaccine to prevent it from coming back. So it keeps going.
That, that's a very it's kind of a natural way to look at it. It's like, the pandemics suck. We are animals living on a planet that these things kind of happen sometimes, and it's sort of, it sounds like it's sort of saying, and it might be the truth, that the chaos that's created by the measures that we're taking aren't worth what we're sacrificing.
Especially when we've learned now just how, it doesn't spread the way they said it would. They said it would be like 2-for-1 spread, like it's going to double every week, this kind of thing. Remember I talked about that?
Yeah, we thought everybody was going to get it. I was
and it never happened.
We're all going to get it eventually, and hopefully you're one of the few that doesn't.
And the death rate was nearly not what they said. And I'm going to go on here. This is a paper, that same paper refuting this idea for the lockdown. It goes on. There are no historical observations or scientific studies that support the confinement by quarantine of groups of possible infected people for extended periods in order to slow the spread of influenza. It is difficult to identify circumstances in the past half century when large-scale quarantine has been effectively used in the control of any disease. The negative consequences of large-scale quarantine are so extreme: forced confinement of sick people with the well, complete restriction of movement of large populations, difficulty in getting critical supplies, medicines, and food to people inside the quarantine zone, that this mitigation measure should be eliminated from serious consideration. Home quarantine also raises ethical questions. Implementation of home quarantine could result in healthy, uninfected people being placed at risk of infection from sick household members. Practices to reduce the chance of transmission, hand washing, maintaining a distance of 3 feet from infected people, etc., could be recommended, but a policy imposing home quarantine would preclude, for example, sending healthy children to stay with relatives when a family member becomes ill. Such a policy would also be particularly hard on and dangerous to people living in close quarters, where the risk of infection would be heightened. Most of these infections have happened to people in houses through families.
Yeah.
Travel restrictions such as closing airports and screening travelers at borders have historically been ineffective. The World Health Organization writing group concluded that screening and quarantining entering travelers at international borders did not substantially delay virus introduction in past pandemics, and will likely be even less effective in the modern era. It is reasonable to assume that the economic costs of shutting down air or train travel would be very high, and the societal costs involved in interrupting all air or train travel would be extreme. During seasonal influenza epidemics, public events with an expected large attendance have sometimes been canceled or postponed, the rationale being to decrease the number of contacts with those who might be contagious. There are, however, no certain indications that these actions have any definitive effect on the severity or duration of an epidemic. were consideration to be given to doing this on a more extensive scale and for an extended period, questions immediately arise as to how many such events would be affected. There are many social gatherings that involve close contacts among people, and this prohibition might include church services, athletic events, perhaps all meetings of more than 100 people. It might mean closing theaters, restaurants, malls, large stores, and bars. Implementing such measures would have serious disruptive consequences. Did you guys see in New York City, there was a Jewish funeral, and Mayor de Blasio had this hammered down on this funeral and was like handing out tickets to these people having a funeral. And then of course we have Black Lives Matter protests come around, and they're allowed to roam free. And there was a story where some Hasidic Jews wanted to get together for a service, and they actually, while they're praying, they put up a Black Lives Matter sign on the wall behind them to say,
they were okay.
Please don't bother us. We also believe Black Lives Matter. Schools are often closed for 1 to 2 weeks early in the development of the seasonal community outbreaks of influenza, primarily because of high absentee rates, especially in elementary schools, and because of illness among teachers. This would seem reasonable on practical grounds. However, to close schools for longer periods is not only impracticable, but carries the possibility of a serious adverse outcome. Thus, canceling or postponing large meetings would not be likely to have any significant effect on the development of a epidemic. While local concerns may result in the closure of particular events for logical reasons, a policy directing community-wide closure of public events seems inadvisable. Quarantine. As experience shows, there's no basis for recommending quarantine either of groups or individuals. The problems in implementing such measures are formidable, and secondary effects of absenteeism and community disruption, as well as possible adverse consequences, such as loss of public trust in government and stigmatization of quarantined people and groups, are likely to be considerable. Finally, the remarkable conclusion. Experience has shown that communities faced with epidemics or other adverse events respond best and with least anxiety when the normal social functioning of the community is least disrupted. Strong political and public health leadership to provide reassurance and to ensure that needed medical care services are provided are critical elements. If either is seen to be less than optimal, a manageable epidemic could move toward catastrophe. Thus did some of the most highly trained and experienced experts in epidemics warn with biting rhetoric against everything that the advocates of lockdown proposed. It was not even a real-world idea in the first place, and showed no actual knowledge of virus and disease mitigation. Again, the idea was born of a high school science experiment using agent-based modeling techniques, having nothing at all to do with real life, real science, or real medicine. So the question becomes, how did the extreme view prevail? The New York Times has the answer. The Bush administration, motherfucking Bush again, it always comes back to Bush. The Bush administration ultimately sided with the proponents of social distancing and shutdowns. Though their victory was little noticed outside of public health circles, their policy would become the basis for government planning and would be used extensively in simulations used to prepare for pandemics, and in a limited way in 2009 during an outbreak of the influenza called H1N1. Then the coronavirus came, and the plan was put to work across the country for the first time. There you go. That's all I'm going to read from that. It says a few more things, but I'll stop there. So I've had this article for about, I don't know, a month maybe.
Yeah.
And I just didn't really want to talk about coronavirus again. And then today, Patrick sends me that screenshot of, oh, they're locking down Knoxville. You know, you're going to have to locking down, but you got to wear masks. I was like, fuck it. I'm going to read this long ass fucking article because when I first read it, it fucking blew my mind.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of that?
Sounds about right. Yeah, this couldn't have been handled any worse.
Well, I mean, you can't unring the bell. You know, once you start it back up, if you shut it down and then you start it back up, now we're
bars are closed here again.
Yeah, bars.
And at the beginning, you know, they didn't recommend wearing masks. Masks that's part of the confusion.
Oh yeah, Dr.
They
Fauci
didn't say that.
He was like, you don't need a mask unless you're sick. He's like, in fact, it might even make you more likely to get sick because people are constantly fucking with their mask, and something gets on your mask and it might get
You
into
keep touching your face.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and to add on to that, the WHO said that they could not find cases of asymptomatic carriers spreading the disease. And of course, and days later they're like, well, that doesn't mean they can't. It doesn't mean they can't spread the disease. We just haven't been able to find these cases.
Well, yeah, you always have to dumb down the data to people, but yeah.
Every time they get somebody that's sick and they trace it, it's from somebody else that was visibly sick. They cannot find, it's like you can't find these asymptomatic, like, oh, I was in contact with this person and they didn't seem sick. Oh, well, let's go test them for antibodies or whatever. Well, they've not found those people.
Right.
Dave, did you have something else you were adding to that?
Well, I mean, it's just so much confusion that's and really poor communication throughout the whole thing, which it only leads to the division. I mean,
and scientists being afraid to actually speak out about the data that they see, because they'll be shut down. They'll be canceled.
You remember that video of Dr. Knut? What was his name? He was like a German guy, the epidemiologist, Knut Wachowski.
I think so. Yeah, yeah. You shared it with us like a couple months ago now.
We talked about it, yeah, and he was talking about. He was saying kind of what the counter argument in this article was like. No, let it spread. Let's protect the vulnerable. Let it spread. Spread among the young, and let's get herd immunity. That video was removed from YouTube for being like false information or like dangerous information or whatever.
Inflammatory.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was something that was it was just a clip of a video that someone shared on Twitter. Of course, the way I found it was, someone bitching about the audacity of this man to say these things, but he was talking about how all along the scientists have been afraid to speak out about what they're seeing, and there should have been like a community of scientists, leading scientists in this field, to actually give real world recommendations, and it just wasn't there, and everybody was afraid to speak about the data because it's so politically driven.
We took a medical issue. What should have been a medical issue was taken and made into a political issue.
Yeah.
And we're all just going to keep paying for it for the next fucking decade.
Oh,
probably.
yeah. This is not going to. I mean, hell, I don't know. Like, it's not even going to be like come New Year's Eve. We're not going to be like, all right, good riddance 2020. It's over.
Mm-hmm. I think this is the new war on terror. The
Yeah.
faceless enemy that's never going away. We're just going to have to fight it and fight it. And if you don't fight it, you're not a patriot.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to go to Iraq and Afghanistan, then, well, you're not for America. God damn it. It all comes back to George W. Bush, doesn't it? That motherfucker. Here he is. He's in his little house in Texas painting dogs and shit. He gets on the news every once in a while.
Paints dogs?
Yeah, he gets on the news every once in a while and chums up to the Clintons and talks shit about Trump, and then he'll disappear and paint some more shitty portraits of dogs. Fucking hate that guy. And I voted for him the first time too.
I voted
first
for him
time
twice.
I voted. Oh, you got twice.
I voted for him twice. Yeah, first time I ever voted was voting for him.
Steve-O and I turned 18 right before that election, 2000 election. Yeah. I was ready to go. I was an excited Republican.
Yep.
Get in there.
Christian voter. I'll vote for the guy that claims to be a Christian.
Yeah, I was in Bible college at the time. I was ready to go. Patrick, you got any thoughts on this Corona shit?
I just want this shit to be done with, man.
All right, that's all I got. That's all I've got. It's fucking hot in this camper. I need some
air. Should
have. Somebody, let me get. Hey, Dave.
Yo.
I need some words of wisdom. And don't just do that Todd thing.
Oh wait, real quick. Jerry jumped in. He's got
Hey,
some
Jerry.
things to say. He said, "Wait, I don't know what's he referring to here." He says somebody lost all credibility. I could finally get on. What did I miss? Good to see you. Dave said. He said lost all credibility once the media and experts said the Black Lives Matter protest didn't pass the virus, but funerals and church services would. Let's see. He talked about not my family. So you don't let the facts get in the way of virtue signaling. And then he says Knox County Sheriff has come out and said he and his deputies will follow the Constitution, and there are some serious constitutional issues with the mask order, implying they will not enforce the mask order. Interesting.
All right. I generally feel pretty good about living in Tennessee for the most part. I feel out of states in the union, Tennessee does pretty well.
Yeah.
I don't know what you fuckers in Florida are gonna do.
We're doing great.
I think
here
we're
in
doing
Brevard.
okay. I mean, actually, I think I don't really know, but the governor's pissing off a lot of people that are pro-COVID.
Pro-COVID.
COVID.
The pro-COVID.
We want everyone having the COVID.
So,
hey, if I could give everybody COVID right now, I would do it. But I don't have that power.
Oh man.
I need the Infinity Gauntlet. Is that the thing?
If I could give, I'd love to give the world a Coke. I'd love to give the world the COVID.
Dave, words of wisdom.
All right. Well, I'm all about the liberty. I get that, but you got to take care of yourself. Just don't piss people off. Don't come coughing at me. Don't lick my fucking doorknobs. They're my doorknobs. Don't lick my doorknobs. So, don't give me COVID by licking my doorknobs. You got that, Nathan?
You remember back when the worst thing was some dumb girl on a plane licking the toilet seat? Those were the good old days. Back in March when we had edgy videos of people licking the toilet seats.
And then the really excited article, girl licks toilet seat, gets coronavirus.
I wonder why.
It's the one that people love, like CNN especially loves those kind of articles, like pastor that defied lockdown gets coronavirus and dies. You could see them like rubbing their hands together excitedly, like as they're like, ooh, he defied the lockdown and he died. Just
he
like
deserved it.
Just coming right into their desk as they type. All right, well, Dave, I guess I'll call those words of wisdom.
They were kind of.
Well, that's what we got.
Wisdom-esque.
Wisdom-esque.
Hey, follow. Wait.
Wisdom-esque.
Oh, we don't have a poem. Fucking. You can follow us on
that's
Twitter.
Why I asked for words of wisdom. Yeah, but thank you to Haywood Banks anyway. Twitter and all that.
Follow us on Twitter _verbal assault _ You'll get the link every week. And we do go live if you want to follow along, get in the chat. That's Wednesday, 10:30 ish. Usually more like 10:45.
Yeah. Be sure to show your support to us on patreon.com/verbal assault. And if you listen to the audio podcast, be sure to like and subscribe and give us a 5-star reviews on iTunes.
We only accept 5-star reviews.
Nothing less. I delete anything that's less than 5 stars.
Just like a Yelp review.
Yep.
And if you know how to use a turkey call, what do they do then?
Well, I would call up to 865-316-6955 and put the turkey collar in your mouth and masturbate. And really, I mean, you've seen a professional do it here tonight, or rather, you've heard a professional do it here tonight. Why don't you get up in that game?
We're not allowed to masturbate anymore. We're like human
bait.
Yeah, we got to bait.
Well,
just bait.
Yeah, one of us baited. Figure out which one did.
One of us baited during the show.
When I was reading that article, I only had one hand on my phone.
Oh shit.
Deuces.